What is going on, everyone? It looks like we are live. Just let me do a technical check before we start to make sure everything is running smoothly. You can see a few of you are already down there for the betting stream. We got Nick Marsh here asking if we like Matt Jones. I certainly do. We'll be talking about him here in a little bit. We also got Mondo down there who says, looking forward to your preview. Done a lot of work this week on some VK teams. I hope to make a case for a long shot this week who is on a bit of an uptick. Top 20 at Vallarta. I would love to hear about it. Go ahead and keep making your case if you'd like to. As of right now, I can't guess who it would be just based on the top 20 at Vallarta, but I'm always more than ears for some of these long shots, particularly with a field of this strength. So we're going to go ahead and start with outrights. Then we're going to talk about a few first-round leader bets that I'll be firing this week and wrapping up with a few of the matchups that I have my eyes on. So going to keep this as concise as humanly possible and not going to talk about everyone on the board, just the guys that I think you guys really need to hear about. And of course, the guys that I actually have on my betting card. So I'll go ahead and do that. If you have any questions, of course, anyone you want my take on, like Mondo is going to do for us down in the chat, feel free to go ahead and fire those down below. So let's go ahead and start off at the top of the board where, of course, somebody that we have to mention is Jon Rahm. He's plus 350 at some books. You can see he's over there at Draftkings plus 350, plus 475, plus 450 across the rest of the industry. And it's pretty much an unbettable number. I'm not going to have a bet on Jon Rahm. I do think the number is fair. I do think that he actually has, a solid 16 to maybe 12% of win equity, like a lot of these lines are implying, but not anything I'd be willing to bet, right? He's not necessarily been a killer in these weak field events in the past. And for me, a lot of my exposure is going to come on the DFS side. Now, with Jon Rahm in the field, there are quite a few nice numbers up top, right? If Jon Rahm wasn't here, guys like Answer would be closer to 12, maybe even 13 to 1. Gary Woodland might be closer to that same type of number, and you wouldn't be getting nearly the same type of value. So that's why I wanted to mention Jon Rahm. I think the number is fair. You could certainly go out there, win this week, and kind of kill all of your outright tickets. But it does give us quite a good value across the board. So talk about a few guys I'd consider. Tony Finau would be one at 22 to 1. You can get him at a variety of different books. I believe that's Draftkings MGM right there. Aaron Wise as well. Both, of course, ball strikers. You're getting a 30 to 1 on Aaron Wise. That's at Draftkings Sportsbook. And they have the distance we're looking for. Both extremely solid approach players. Can be a little bit shoddy with the putter from time to time, but just ask Tony Finau, right? He won the Puerto Rico Open, another golf course that has paspalum greens, also another long golf course. So clearly, it tends to kind of fix some of the putting woes that these players have, and it's because they run slow. I should say, just in general, a lot of these golf courses that are paspalum also tend to not have much undulation. It's not because they're paspalum that they don't have much undulation. It's because these paspalum golf courses that we go to in the Caribbean are all resort-style golf courses. I mean, think about Mayakoba, resort-style golf course. This week, going to be a resort-style golf course. Punta Cana, it's Corrales Resort, literally a resort that they're playing on, so on and so forth. Even Cocoa Beach Golf Club, that's also a resort style course. So those type of greens tend to play into some of the worst putters on tour. So guys that struggle with the flat stick are going to be guys I have in my cards. I already have an outright on Tony Finau and Aaron Wise. Also considering adding one for Sebastian Munoz. I have him in my DFS poll. Certainly like him in that type of format. I don't have them on my outright ticket market yet. Again, I'm considering that at this point. I have them in my first round leader market, though. So we're going to talk about that here in a second. You get a little bit of a juicier number on Sebastian Munoz in the first round leader market as well. So that'll be something that we're considering. Moving a little bit further down here, there's not that many guys here in like the 30 to 50 to 1 range that I like. I mean, guys like Patrick Reed, of course, some of the worst form on tour. Cameron Tringale, a little bit too short. I think Cameron Champ is getting far too much steam this week. It'd probably take something closer to 60 or 71 for me to bite. So the next guy that I'm adding after Finau and, of course, Aaron Wise is going to be Matt Jones. So I mentioned before I would be talking about him. Nick Marsh brought him up. Absolutely love him this week. He's got the bunker play we're looking for. He's an Australian. These Australians tend to really take apart these Greg Norman designs. He's got the distance off the tee we're looking for. He's relatively inaccurate, but you're going to get away with that at this golf course with 40 to 50 yard landing areas. Just in general, this golf course sets up perfectly for Matt Jones. So he's been kind of struggling with the putter of late. He's a pop player in that category. He can go out there, gain 3 or 4 strokes to the field any given week, but more often than not is going to lose those 3 to 4 strokes to the field. So that's why we've seen him, kind of not have the best finishes. They've all been Other than the Valero Texas Open, not that flashy. But hopefully he can lean into that momentum that he found there in the flat stick last time out. Instead of finishing in the top 5, actually come through for a win. Moving down here to the 60-1 range, not anybody that really draws my attention. I mean, Davis Riley, he's a high upside play, but he doesn't really have the off the tee play that I'm looking for at this menu. Aaron Rye, more of a consistent player. He's a top 25 machine, but doesn't necessarily have the upside, or at least we haven't seen it yet on the PGA Tour, to go out there and nab a win. Carlos Ortiz at 70-1. I haven't placed an outright on it, but that definitely draws my attention. Same thing with Lanto Griffin at 70-1. Both of those numbers I would give a little bit of inherent value to. It's just I'm not sure if they're going to go out there and win, right? First, Carlos Ortiz, dreadful form over the last 2 months. If he was coming in with solid form and was at 70-1, I would have already bet it, right? It would have been something I smashed on Monday evening, but I'm a little bit concerned about the recent form. And with Lanto Griffin, the same thing. Hasn't necessarily been playing his best brand of golf, but maybe could come around this week. And I do think there's at least a little bit of value there. Just not anything that I'm trying to squeeze into my player pool. Let's go ahead and catch up on chat. Mondo's given us a little bit more clues to this player. So he says, it's no stranger to the big stage, even though it's been a while, driving it better lately. Can still put the lights out of it. Great on pass follow. Maybe you can touch on him when you get to the 6K range. You're going to have to let me know who this is, dude. It's Baddeley. Okay, it's Aaron Baddeley. He can definitely, certainly still putt it. The only issue with him, and yeah, we'll talk about him. I'm sure his outright number is like 200-1 or something. I'll make sure we touch on him. I'm only worried about the off the tee play, but I'm going to save it until we get to him because, like you said, there's a lot there as well to be excited about. I mean, what was it? A few weeks ago, he ended up Monday qualifying. I forget what tournament it was at. It was in the last month or two, and went out there and made the cut that week. Had a pretty solid week for us. Played him in DFS. Yeah, he could be a sneaky play. We'll see what his outright number is, and I'll give you a little bit of a take on the skill set. Let's keep moving here in the 80-1 range, though. JT posted at 80-1. That's just not a good enough number. It really should be like 125-1. He's getting a lot of steam because of the RBC heritage. Sahith Theegala, he's a high upside play. It's just the recent form, much like a Carlos Ortiz. If he was coming in with even a semblance of good recent form, I would have already fired the bet at 80-1. So perhaps if you're willing to overlook that, kind of take a flyer pick on one of these guys flipping their form quickly, he would be a guy to go to. Same thing with Alex Smalley. Hasn't been playing his best golf, but that's a very similar player at 90-1. Now, bet I've already made. Austin Smotherman at 110-1. I absolutely think this is a perfect course fit for him. He's a very popular pick this week in DFS, but somebody I fired an outright bet on. And right behind him, Adam Smithson at 130-1. Also somebody I already put an outright bet on. Both these kids are young, up-and-coming ball strikers, relatively long off the tee, and also pop putters. So I think they're more than fair enough numbers. You can see there's, guys with names around them, right? Like a Nick Taylor, guys like a Pat Perez, Grayson Sigg, for that example. Players that we've seen, have some success on tour to this point. I think that Smotherman and Svensson have an entire tier difference in terms of their potential, right? They can really put it all together, gain 6-7 strokes on approach, both of them in a certain event. Both of them are going to gain 2 to 3 strokes off the tee at an event that really emphasizes distance like we're going to have this week. Just in terms of their potential, I think they have much higher upside. Moving on to the true 150 range, like towards the mid 150s, it really kind of drops off fast. Those are by far my favorite two options. If I was going to take a shot at anyone, Kramer Hickok could be somebody to keep an eye on. He just in terms of pedigree, better player than a lot of his peers. Patrick Rogers is a bomber, so perhaps he's somebody you could take a shot on, but not anybody that I've added to my card. Moving down to around the 150 to 175 range, Hayden Buckley at 200-1 could be somebody to add. Talked about him as a value pick this week. He's, of course, a little bit volatile. We saw the positive end of that volatility at the Sanderson Farms, though. So certainly could go out there and break a slate here at some point. It's not likely. It's not likely, though. That's why he's 200-1. Matt Wallace at 200-1. Of course, he looked pretty solid at the Zurich Classic, but might be a little bit too early to be jumping on outrights there. Aaron Baddeley is 250-1, so I promised we'd talk about him. At 250-1, right, you're talking about a pure flyer, right? You're putting, a 20th of a unit on these type of plays, maybe a 10th of a unit. If you're trying to get a little bit hairy with these type of plays, you're not putting $100 on Aaron Baddeley at 250-1, right? So I got to keep that in perspective. I think in that type of scenario, right, it's something worth doing, right? He's not somebody you're going to put a ton of money on. But like you said, if you have all of those reasons for playing him, you like the recent form, you like the fact that he's still putting the lights out, he's been good on pass pollen, which I would agree. I can't remember his finishes off the top of my head, but I know for a fact that he's shown up at these like alternate field events, like Puerto Rico Open. I know he's had success. Corrales, I believe he's finished in the top 25 a few times. Those are the type of narratives you want to go with, right? Because this isn't brand new golf course. You don't really know how it's going to play. So just lean into what we know about it. We know it has pass palm greens, and we know it's a tropical resort style golf course. So if those are the type of things that you're going with there, Aaron Baddeley checks both of those boxes. So somebody to consider. Patrick Flavin, also somebody to consider at 250 to 1. This is like the European Tour. You have young up and comers, like wet dream of a player. You'll see a lot of the European Tour people this week betting a Patrick Flavin. He Monday qualified a few weeks ago, ended up playing pretty well at that event. From what I hear, again, I don't know enough about him. I'm not placing an outright bet on him or anything like that. Really, really good skill set. Young up and coming stud that we're probably going to see for quite some time. Brandon Higgy is 350 to 1. I mean, just outrageously long in terms of his odds. Probably not somebody I'm actively looking to add to my card, but would not be mind blown if he ended up winning this thing. He's got the top end upside to get there. And outside of that, guys, that's it. There's not going to be anybody else I'm willing to take a shot on. I mean, you're looking at guys that haven't even competed for 3 to 4 years, let alone at this type of event, even in this type of field. Just scrolling through to be complete here. Yeah, there's not going to be anybody I'd even consider. I mean, towards the bottom of the board, you're talking about Matt Every, who God knows the last time we saw him compete. I don't even think he's on the Korn Ferry Tour, or maybe he is. It doesn't even have full status out there anymore. Just kind of ugly across the board. Let's go ahead and hop over to first round leader now, which is right here. And like I said, there's actually a few that I've already added to my card, and we'll talk about a few others that I consider adding to. We'll catch up on chat. Nick says, yes, Hickok. Yeah, I wouldn't even put 100 on Baddeley. Yeah, I know we were talking about your bets before you put $100 on it. Yeah, it'd be a little bit too aggressive. Like if your unit size was $100, like $10 bet on Baddeley would be like what you should be doing, because yeah, he's more than a flyer pick, but we've seen wilder things happen. I mean, we've seen 300 to 1 winners like Nick Taylor at the Amex win. We've seen guys like Jim Herman win at 300 to 1. We've seen crazier stories than that. Corey Connors is a Monday qualifier, come through and win. If there's a narrative that you're going with and it checks the boxes that you're looking for, why not, put a couple of dollars on it, right? You don't have to do anything crazy. Let's talk about first round leaders though. So Sebastian Munoz at 40 to 1 was somebody that I added almost immediately. He's a madman, just goes out there, shoots at every single pin, does not hold back whatsoever. So at 40 to 1, he's certainly somebody that has my attention. He's also been playing really well of late. If you take a look at his shots gain metrics, he's gaining a third of a stroke per round off the tee, a third of a stroke per round on approach. Really a lot to look forward to there. A little bit further down the board. Now, the next guy I added to my board was Matt Jones at 65 to 1. So we have the outright on him, obviously. Added him in the first round leader market too. He's also somebody who's been first round leader before. Just think of the Honda Classic. Went out there, absolutely stormed the field. Won first round leader by 3 strokes there down at PGA National. I was actually able to see that in person, and I had a bet on Matt Jones to be first round leader. So that was pretty fun to watch around that golf course. He's done it before. Would not be surprised to see him do it again at a golf course that really suits his game. Let's see. So those are the 2 that I had. I don't usually bet all that many first round leaders. I consider adding Sahith Theegala. I don't think he's the worst pick on the board. He's a really volatile player. If you're going to get a little bit funky with it, try to go a little bit further down the board. JT Poston can get nuclear hot with the putter, so wouldn't be surprised if he went out there and had a really solid day. Svensson and Smotherman right there at 100 to 1, so a little bit lower number than what we have on the outright market, but that makes sense given their volatility. If you go down into the 100 to 1 range, that's probably about it though, right? Svensson, Smotherman, probably where I'd cap it off, because you lose a lot of value, right? When you're talking about a 4-round winner, you're going to get 150, 200 to 1 on a lot of these same names. Because it's first round leader, it's a little bit more volatile, just a 1-round sample size. You're only getting 100 to 1, right? So got to be a little bit more selective with some of the value that you're taking. Those are the 4 first round leader bets that I'm going to be adding to my card though. Let's move on to matchups now. So this is by far the most profitable form of betting. In terms of my units, I'll usually allocate about 5 units to outright bets. If I'm placing 5 outrights, right, it'll be an average of 1 unit per bet. If I'm betting somebody like John Rahm this week, I'm not. I told you guys that before. It'd be like a 2 or even 2.5 unit type of bet for me. It wouldn't be something where I'm only putting 1 unit on it and then putting 1 unit on Svensson. It's going to be like 2.5 units on a John Rahm, half a unit on a Svensson, so on and so forth. This week, because I only have 4 outright bets currently, I have 2 units on Aaron Wise, 2 units on Tony Finau, and then the rest of it is split over 1 unit a piece of my other bets, like Matt Jones, Svensson, and Smotherman, for example. So this week it's 6 units. That's usually how I make my card, though. So just want to go ahead and put that out there. With first round leaders, it's half a unit a piece. I don't go crazy on those. They're more for entertainment than anything. Also, I just take long shots there, right? So it's a little bit more of a volatile sport. When it comes to matchups, though, I'll bet a unit on all of the matchups that I bet. So if I'm playing 15 matchups, that's 15 units. I'll play an entire unit for each one of them because it is by far the most consistent form of betting when it comes to golf. It's also where the biggest edges are because you can find numbers across different books. That's why I like using odds checker for this purpose to really try and pinpoint that value. So this is where I spend most of my time when it comes to golf betting. And this week I only have 4 matchups, but that's because of the weak field. I don't want to bet on a group, and this is just personal preference, guys. There's no change in the ROI. I want to bet on a Bryce Garnett, Ryan Blom, and Arjun Atwal group. I have no interest in sweating those 3 golfers there on a Thursday. So it's just going to stick to the main high-profile groups, the guys that will actually be watching on ESPN Plus, actually be able to sweat on TV because we don't have ShotLink, right? It's going to be a lot harder to sweat some of these groups. So for me, for my sake, for my sanity, I'm going to stick to the ones that we know are going to be on TV. So just keep that in mind because these are round by round type of bets. These are also something that we can jump on for round 2, right? For me, it's not just going to be the first round bets that I do for my matchups. Excuse me, guys. I'm consistently adding bets for a second, third, of course, final round matchups, that type of thing. Same type of story, a lot of this similar type of edge. But this is the type of mindset that I go with. Wow. Sorry, guys. I have a little bit of gas there. It's kind of bothering me, but let's go ahead and talk about these groups. So let's go. Let's actually catch up on chat before we do this. Ali Bro says no love for Garrigus making the cut as a cut maker. Not in an outright market, right? So this is our betting show on DFS. I might be more willing to consider him, but he's not winning this golf tournament, right? So this is all about outright bets. I'm not really one to go to the prop market to make the cut type of things. Is usually not that much value, at least in my opinion. Just not something I really look at too much. Chris Palmer says, if you had a no ROM clause with a person playing head-to-head cash with, where would you start your lineup? So I'm assuming that's just kind of like a friendly house roll that you have with whoever you're playing your head-to-head. I know you play cash against other people, which is pretty cool. I would start my lineup in the 9K range. That whole 10K range to me is way too volatile. We'll talk about this a little bit later on during the DFS stream in a little bit more detail. But yeah, the guy up top the only guy I have any sense of safety in this week is John Rahm. So I would start in the 9K range. But make sure you stop by for the DFS stream. I'll talk about that in more detail. Let's talk about these matchups, though. So this John Rahm group with Charles Howell III and Cameron Champ, it's one of the few times I'm willing to bet a minus money favorite in a 3-ball type of format. Cameron Champ, extremely volatile. So, I mean, he could go out there, shoot 7 or 8 under par, but that's a ceiling performance for him, right? That's a top 5 to 7 percentile type of performance. Whereas John Rahm, if he goes out there, has a 50th percentile performance, he's winning this group well more than 60, 70% of the time. I mean, Charles Howell III doesn't have anywhere near the length that we need for this golf course. And Cameron Champ, he's had plenty of struggles when it comes to approach play around the green and putting over his last 24 measured rounds. Really, the only bright spot was at the Masters, which we were on him, right? We were able to hit on that. But at the same time, not something that should be sustainable going forward. So not somebody I'll be adding to the card. It'll be John Rahm, minus 120. I've already placed a 1-unit bet on that. Moving on to this Patrick Reed, Munoz, and Todd group. I've already placed a unit on Sebastian Munoz here. Patrick Reed should not be the favorite. The guy is... I hate to brag on the guy, but he's playing absolutely dog shit golf. There's no other way to put it. He's losing in every shots game category, including putting. Like he's known for being a short game wizard, yet he's losing to the field with the putter. So just not somebody I can back up. So if Munoz, the deserving favorite, is going to be plus 170, he's a group in Brendan Todd, who is nowhere near long enough to make an impact at this golf course, would have to be hitting 200, 220-yard iron shots to putting range to really out-putt somebody like Munoz. He's going to be hitting shots from 150, maybe 175 yards at the very most. He should run away with this group. So it's actually one of the matchup bets I'd even consider putting 2 units on because I'm that confident behind it. Moving on to this Aaron Wise, Poston, and Lashley group. This won't be on ESPN Plus, but a group that I like betting Wise on. Mentioned the ball striking prowess. JT Poston, Nate Lashley, not really long enough off the tee to make a factor. Now, I like JT Poston. I think he has some upside. That Aaron Wise's ball striking is on a different level. He's extremely consistent. And in these matchup type of formats, even if it's just for a 1-round sample size, like what we have here for these 3 balls, you're still looking for the 50th percentile type of performance, right? You're looking for the consistent or median winner out of the group. And at plus 145, that is enough juice there to squeeze. The Thagala, Perez, the Jagus group, it's a no bet for me, but I would be taking Thagala if that was something I was considering betting. Let's go ahead and find these other featured groups towards the bottom of the board. All right, we have Answer, Tony Finau, and Kevin Na. This is actually one of the more intriguing groups on the board. It's a hard one to choose between, right? Answer is not my favorite golfer this week. Worried about his lack of distance. Same thing with Kevin Na, right? So we have an outright on Tony Finau. Plus 188 seems fair, but this is a really competitive group. And this is a 1-round sample size. So I do have a 1-unit bet on Tony Finau, but it's not like the Sebastian Munoz bet where at plus 170, I'm extremely confident in it. I think it's a relatively fair number there at plus 188. The fortunate part is the number I got was plus 165. So it was not the plus 188 that we had right here. Abraham Answer was plus 150 at the book I was able to access. Tony Finau was plus 165. And Kevin Na was plus, I believe it was 250. So that's why the odds were a little bit adjusted there, obviously. But I would go with Tony Finau there for sure. That's a bet that I placed. Would bet Matt Jones there, but because it's not on TV, I didn't bet it. This Gary Woodland, Ortiz, and McDowell group, it will be on TV. It's on ESPN Plus. They're one of the featured groups in the afternoon. I'd definitely be taking Ortiz. Hometown favorite, somebody who's relatively long off the tee, but not very accurate. So this course plays much into his skill set off the tee. Also somebody who's a very solid putter on past palm. We've seen him have a ton of success at the Mayakoba Classic. Gary Woodland, though, is a decent play, but plus 125, right? So he's soaking up so much of that win equity. And even a guy like Mcdowell at plus 275, you could argue that number is well too large on him. Now, it comes down to skill set. Of course, we're looking for that distance off the tee, somebody who can win out of this 3-ball more than 50% of the time. And for me, that's going to be Carlos Ortiz. So plus 178, well, I got him at plus 170. I didn't get him at plus 185. Of course, that's kind of the bad thing about these books. You got to be able to access all of them to really get the best numbers. But no matter what number you can get on Ortiz, probably something I'd be taking a look at there. Moving on to the rest of the board, there's not any other bets I have. The rest of these groups aren't going to be televised. I mean, this group you could probably track because it's 3 relatively high-profile players. I'd be taking Russell Knox there. But just, again, it's a week without Shot Tracker. It's a week where we don't have a lot of coverage, especially, from the tech side, being able to check fairways, greens, and regulation, that sort of thing. So kind of limits a lot of our bets out there. So that's all we're going to have for this week. We'll catch up on chat before we hop out of here. Let's see. Nick says, Reed is the type to go out there and win on a week like this. I doubt we have Shot Tracker this week. Yeah, I know. Yeah, we're not going to have it this week. I don't think he's going to win this week, man. He's in a stretch of form right now where you could legitimately question whether he's going to be on tour in a year or so. In the past, it'd been like 3 or 4 events that Patrick Reed would go on a down spell where he'd, miss a few cuts in a row, that type of thing, but he'd always figure it out. He'd flip it around, make a cut, go out there the next week, finish in the top 25, and then, go out there and win, like you said. It's been a lot longer this time, and the stats look a lot uglier this time. So we'll have to see. I hope he turns it around for his sake. I'm not a big Patrick Reed fan, so can't say that I'm really hoping for it, but we'll have to see with that. Mondo says, reason I like Badalay this week is because he is on an uptick. Good finish at Valero. Yep. And his slump of recent years is due to the driver. Driving it better lately, and with wide width fairways, why not? I'm just worried about the distance, right? So when he gains off the tee, a lot of it is with the accuracy. And over the last month or even 2 months on tour, it's been a lot of positional golf courses, right? Think of the Florida swing. A lot of golf courses where it's about keeping the ball in play, not necessarily getting it out there with your distance. I mean, even think over the last few weeks when we've had these Pete Dye designs. Pete Dye is infamous for being position over distance. This week, it's all about distance over position. So that's the only reason I'm not thrilled about it. He's still somebody I'd be willing to put $10 on, though, right? He has that upside, particularly if, again, you have so much conviction behind the pick. wouldn't want to talk you off of it, but that is the concern I have. It's off the tee. He doesn't really have the distance that I'm looking for. And this is certainly a power over precision type of golf course. And again, we haven't seen it yet, but it's 7,500 yards, massive fairways. So sure, he's going to hit pretty much every single fairway, but every single player in the field will also be hitting pretty much every single fairway. So that advantage he creates for himself on these tight driving golf courses is not likely to be there. And I say likely because we don't know for sure. And he says multiple winner on the PGA Tour in the past. Yeah, no, I know, man. I definitely agree with you. I hope it happens. It'd be pretty cool if he could go out there and win. He needs it. If he can win, I believe he gets his full status back. He's a conditional status right now because of those wins, because of some of his performances over the last year. You know, he plays from time to time, but yeah, he would definitely like to lock up that schedule. So best of luck to you, Mondo. I thank you for stopping by. I appreciate everyone else that stopped by as well. I appreciate all the support here. If you haven't already hit that like button, make sure to smash that before you hop out of here. If you're watching this on replay, I didn't cover somebody you wanted me to, feel free to go ahead and comment them down below. I'll comment on that as soon as I can. We will have a DFS live stream going on, guys. So as per usual, that will be live at 7 p.m. Eastern time. We'll be covering my projections, player pool, ownership, any DFS related stuff. So make sure to stop on by around then, and I'll see you guys later.